Hey everybody, it's Michael with Check of Vet, and today we're doing a really serious interview about something that's a huge contributor to women and men post-military. It's about military sexual trauma, and I'm so honored today to have Janice. Janice, if you would please introduce yourself.
My name is Janice Brown. Been in the military for a few years, been out for several years, was a tank mechanic around a lot of men. So, and here I am.
When, when you joined up, did you join up for 2 years, or was your service cut short?
I actually was in for 3 years. My
Okay.
contract was kind of weird. It was a 3-year contract, but I was already on my second enlistment.
Okay. So you were on your second enlistment when you got out?
Yes, I did re-enlist, hoping to get out of where I was.
Okay. What was your life like before you joined the service? Was joining the service kind of a way out of something, or just natural progression?
No, I was always going to go in the military. I knew I was going to go in the military when I was about 4 years old.
Wow. I didn't know I was going to join the military until my best friends did, and I kind of got sucked into it. So it seemed like this was a lifelong aspiration for you.
Yes.
So let me try to give you some context about me working with women in the military. When I joined, I was a tanker, and as you became a tank mechanic, I didn't even know that female tank mechanics was a thing. So I had worked with women in for a month when I was in PLDC in Baumholder, Germany, back in 1992, and then I never worked with women again because I spent a few years as a tanker, and then I crossed over into special forces, and nowhere in the field was there females
Yeah.
until it was until like 2004 when I joined and when I went to Fort Rucker to become a warrant officer. And then that's where I was kind of heaved into this fresh experience of working with men and women together at the same time. So you knew early that you were going to join, but why were you going to join? I don't understand that from such a young age. What made you want to join?
My uncle was in the army, and well, all my uncles and my dad was, they were all Navy. But my one uncle, he was in the Navy, then transferred to the Army, and I used to see him come and go as he pleased. And I was going to be like him when I grew up. He was a Ranger, and he was pretty cool. I was going to be like him. So, starting wearing the green makeup whenever I was about 4 years old kind of freaked me out a little bit, but I joined.
Okay.
Done it.
Is Did you know what you wanted to be when you joined the service? I just from knowing you, you had a mechanical background. Was that right?
Um, I've been around a lot of things as far as it goes. My brother used to tinker with things, just take things apart, put it back together. Always mechanical side of things, but I scored really high on my ASVAB with electronics, hydraulics, because I knew more about that. I wasn't in the science field at that point, wasn't in the health field at that point. So,
Okay. So you sign up, you score well, and you're off to basic training. Where did you go to basic
mhm.
training at?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, Fort Leonard really is kind of a hodgepodge of males and females who are going to basic training for different things like military police or even construction workers. Is that right?
Yes.
So when you got to basic, what would you say the ratio of men to women was?
So whenever I was in basic, we were not co-ed yet. We were There were no men around. So we were still not co-ed. That was like maybe a year or so even after us. So, couldn't even tell you. We were not even allowed to look at men.
So did you have male drill sergeants, or were those all also all female?
Um, We had, I think, in my company, maybe one female drill sergeant, and that was in my platoon.
Right. Wow. In basic training, did that cause any problems or anxiety for you or the other females having, these, alpha males, kind of ruling over you the way I would see a drill sergeant does? Did that cause any problems in basic training?
Not in basic training at all, because well, for my platoon alone, we had really great drill sergeants. Um, they were fair, they were great people. And most people would never say that. Most people would never say that they would ever go back to, basic training. I would go back a million times over before I would do anything else,
Wow.
as long as I had
So,
drill sergeants.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a story that we don't hear because of the way that the news sensationalizes those stories that we do hear, the way that they do a lot of things. So pretty good experience in basic training. Tell me about AIT.
Yes. Well, going back to basic training, I mean, there was one incident, and that was from a different company. So, had one female drill sergeant from a different company. I did not know who she was. My drill sergeant actually told me to leave the dining facility and to run back to the barracks because I was the only one left because we were having a long discussion. My sleeve barely touched her sleeve, and she got in my face and literally just chewed me a new one, threatened me, and from that day on, she and her platoon was looking for me, um, planned on jumping me, planned on just doing whatever. So later on that night, my drill sergeant had CQ that night, and he asked me what she said, and I started telling him verbatim, and he's like, "No, write it down." So I wrote it down, and from my understanding, she was relieved of her duties. It was that bad because every time they came in the dining facility when we were eating mess hall, um, they had to hide me because her
That's
whole
awesome.
platoon was going to stomp my butt and, do whatever.
That's terrible to have on top of everything else you're going through in basic training, change of environment, people screaming at you or whatever, to actually, I'm not saying that you were afraid, but I think because you're such a strong person, I'm not saying that, but I'm sure that it did weigh on you in a way that you shouldn't even had that luggage to begin with. That's
Yeah,
amazing to me.
yeah.
Were there any issues with sexual assault in basic training in maybe the other companies that you were in
Not that I'm
training with?
aware of. Not that I'm aware
Okay.
of.
I want to say I remember it might have been 15 or 20 years ago, and I think that it actually was Fort Leonard Wood when this whole thing blew up. And maybe we can talk more of that later. So you graduate basic training, you get started with AIT. Now you were in AIT just to be a tank mechanic?
Yes. So I was a 63 hotel. With your 63 series, you start off with like wheeled vehicles, things like that. When you get your rank, you end up being a 63 hotel. Well, I was already going to be a 63 hotel. I didn't have to go through everything. So I was already at the top tier, basically. So going to AIT, which your main area right there is Aberdeen Proving Ground. We were right outside of Aberdeen Proving Ground in Edgewood, right on the bay. So very small area.
So that's
And
where you completed your generic mechanic training was at Aberdeen.
we're right outside of Aberdeen in Edgewood.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, did you have to go to Fort Knox, or I guess now it's at Fort Benning, to become a
No,
tank mechanic?
nope, that's where we went, Edgewood, which is now
Okay.
shut down. Yeah.
All right. What was the ratio of females to males in that? You said, the top notch of the mechanic field.
Um, there probably maybe per female 5 or 6 guys per female. So,
Okay. Now, one of my few experiences that I mentioned earlier was when I went to the Warrant Officer Basic Course. And I was kind of blown away by how sexually charged even that was.
mhm.
These are, I think when I went in, I already had like 12 years in the service. Was there any of that in AIT, or was everybody pretty professional with each other?
uh, it was pretty bad, pretty bad.
So it was
I think
mostly the trainees, or now did your instructors
um
start to get involved in that?
when we arrived, one of my one of the soldiers that we'd met, she was pregnant, drill sergeant. So we didn't get too far involved in that. They would not allow us. And one night there was a gentleman, I wouldn't say gentleman actually, there was a drill sergeant and not a gentleman at all. He came in on CQ duty and my battle had just came in from leave for the weekend. Her dad was dying of cancer and I was passed out cold. He comes in drunk off his butt, going through all of our things on CQ duty, starts beating the crap out of my bed, hits me over the head with his flashlight, um, all kinds of great things. I jump up, and that was the end of his duty as well.
So you reported that, or collectively you guys reported that?
My battle and I, we reported that to my drill sergeant, and my drill sergeant in AIT, most people did not cross. She was a power lifter. When I first met her, I really couldn't see her face because of where she was standing. I wasn't quite sure if she was a man or a woman, but she's a woman. But big power lifter, and not too many people crossed her. But when it happened, when it did occur, like I said, he struck me across the face, drunk off his butt, and yeah, that was the end of him. At that point,
It doesn't.
you,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
at that point, you kind of know that okay, this is when you got to really start learning to speak up for yourself because nobody else is going to.
Just just not knowing, to me that sounds like it would be something that would be strictly against standard operating procedures for
Exactly.
a male drill sergeant to be anywhere in where there's just females. Am I right?
Hmm. Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. So he physically assaulted you with a flashlight, and did you
Hmm.
say he was pounding on your bed?
He hit my bed with the flashlight, missed the bed, hit me over the head.
Man.
Like I said, he was
And
drunk.
what was your battle buddy in the same room, or how many females were in the
Yes,
same
she
room?
had just, it was just the two of us.
Okay. And she had just left, or just got back?
She had just arrived. Yep.
Wow. Man, that's something. So you graduated AIT. I'm hoping that that was a fairly isolated incident, was it?
That incident was, we did have a senior drill sergeant over our company. He was a bit strange. I remember I dropped my keys to my locker. They just fell out of my pocket, and I ran back to get them, and he had already scooped them up. And he made everybody feel uncomfortable. Having to step in his office was really awkward, and I actually made another drill sergeant come in there with me because it was that awkward. And I found out later on that this man got in trouble as well.
Did any of these drill sergeants have a prior history, or Was this just the Army exposing them as they went on?
I think he just got exposed later on because I had met a guy, another NCO later on that he went to PLDC with, and he just knew that he was going to be one of those men. And
Would
sure
he
enough,
close
he
the door
was.
when he went in there to talk with other
He attempted
trainees, or
to. He
say that
attempted
again?
to. He attempted to do that with me. And here I
Mm.
was, 18 years old. So,
But you at least had the presence of mind, and you know, I would also say, you were bold in enforcing your rights and asking another drill sergeant to go in there with you. I don't know how many other females would do that. Am I right? Or would you say you were the
correct.
exception?
I'm probably one of the exceptions, but I mean, I think my looks alone was enough to kind of like, I do have a stern look about me, which you've met me face to face. So a lot of people, kind of don't take me for granted and they do understand my background. And so, they understood
Right.
where I was coming from at that point, even at a young age.
Okay. So let's continue to move forward. Where was your first duty station at?
Fort Irwin, California.
At NTC. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you there working on the Op 4 vehicles? Was that your job?
No, I was not on four, but we were support battalion.
Okay. So you were
Yeah.
supporting the maneuver troops that were there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
All
So
of the officers that would come out, basically.
say that again.
The majority of the officers that would come out, that's basically who we would support.
Okay. So that was just fresh faces all of the time then, as far as the people going through NTC.
Yes.
So how big of a platoon and how big of a company were you in at Fort Irwin?
When I first arrived, we had about a little over 200 people in our company. And my platoon, there's about 20 of us.
Okay. And again, I keep going back to this, trying to, inform myself, but also inform the people who are going to watch this. What would you say the ratio of males to females was in your company and your platoon?
In our platoon, there was only two females.
And
That
across
was
the company, was that about the same?
across the company. As far as us mechanics and everything, there's probably maybe 10 or 15 females altogether. That was it.
So, I mean, you guys were outnumbered 30 to 1, 20 to 1?
Yep. Yep.
Holy moly. Plus, the thing that I remember most about being at NTC is how isolated the base is itself. It
Yes.
seems like you're an hour and a half from anywhere. So you're really a
Yeah.
captive audience. And in an audience like that, it just seems like, and you can confirm or deny this, especially when you get to a unit, everybody's all up in each other's business. Is that right?
Yes. The first day we were actually assigned to our units, as soon as one of my other friends and I were moving in, which we had gone through basic AIT and everything together. When we were moving in, we had a knock at our door every 5 minutes, and it was a different guy every 5 minutes.
But they were all like same rank, same, or
Yeah,
were
just
these
seeing if
like
we needed
platoon
help
sergeants?
unpacking. I'm like, yeah, nope, don't need help. Goodbye.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's pretty crazy. What was it like there your first week when you got there?
Um, like I said, every guy's knock on your door every 5 minutes. Um, very awkward for me, which I knew more people out there than what people ever thought. So I'll tell you about that later on. Um, it was really weird. The first week when we got there, we were actually pulled aside and we were asked if we knew anything about what happened at Aberdeen Proving Ground because in '94, when we were there, that's when the big, huge investigation was going on, if you remember correctly.
Okay. I think I mistook Leonardwood for Aberdeen. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a huge national
huge.
event, right?
That was when we were there. Yep.
Wow.
So we were asked if we knew anything. We were questioned about everything. And matter of fact, my platoon sergeant is the one that pulled us aside to write down anything and everything that we knew, that we heard about, that we needed to discuss so that they can report it.
Sounds like he was trying to do the right thing in the right way. Yeah.
So he says,
Okay. Noted. Um, when you got to your unit, were you guys segregated by like floors or buildings or
no,
anything like that?
no,
Wow.
we all lived amongst each other.
Yeah.
It was
I want to say,
women in the same room, but then my neighbors were guys, on every side of me. So,
right. When I was stationed in Germany in the early 90s, they at least had a SOP for your bigger support battalions and brigades. And it was probably just because of the prevalence of females versus males. I mean, they separated everything by floors, which was probably a good idea. But in your situation, because there was only two of you in the platoon, that would be logistically hard to do, right?
correct.
Okay. So what was it like as you started? Did it feel like a weird charged environment or
So when we started, um, my platoon sergeant told us our within the first week to not ever ask to stay in the office and work. This is a job we signed up for, and we would be working in the field every single day, working wherever every single day. Don't ever ask to stay in the office
hmm,
because we'll never be in the office.
was that would you say that was a true statement? Or I almost get the feeling that he was trying to keep you out of being in the office.
It was one of those things that you're a mechanic. Don't, like think that you're gonna get by with anything just because you're a female, one of those things.
Okay. Um, where did this kind of start to go sideways for you?
Um, Probably, let's see, got there in August of '94. Probably, let's see, October or so that year, I had tweaked my back. I was one of the smallest in the platoon, so I can get in places that, really most people couldn't. And I still have quite a bit of strength. Tweaked my back and had to go to the doctor. And my right leg kept on going numb. So I go to the doctor and I tell him what's going on. The doctor tells me, suck it up. Sorry you chose this job. Have better lifting mechanics.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, thanks. Cool. So, I think that's why I do what I do now. So, I go back. We had a battalion run coming up, and one of my neighbors, one of my buddies, decides to kick me, which I really didn't even know him that well. I think he might have been an E4 at the time, and I was a E2. kicks me at the bottom of my foot. Couldn't feel that leg. I'm running in the middle of the formation of 200 plus soldiers. I come down, kind of like on my ankle, but the major part that hits the ground is my knee, jar my hip, rocks and everything embedded in my knee. And like I said, I'm in the middle of our company. He just thought he was being funny. I get stomped, kicked, everything. Could not get up, could not walk, could not feel my leg. Um, One of my squad leaders actually had to scoop me up, take me to the ER. Could not walk for 2 days.
So is this kind of a combination of the on-the-job injury and obviously this getting run over by everybody behind you and the guy tripping you?
Yep.
Hmm.
So that's where everything starts happening. My original squad leader, he had just left for BNOC, and so he wasn't there. Had a couple other guys to, help out, whatever. But then they started leaving. Then, see, I went home for like maybe a few days in October that year. So I hadn't been home in almost a year, I guess. But November was when everything really started changing. And
Were
it
you
was
like
like
on
to
a
the start.
profile from what had happened, or did you have a change of environment?
I was on a profile for a little while because I was on crutches. Once again, they had to like dig all the rocks out of my leg, and my ankle was swollen as could be. And once again, as soon as I get off the profile, we're doing another battalion run to the front gate and back, and that was about 8 miles. So,
Hmm. So what happened to make this start? I mean, did it start as just harassment, or first time was it just a full-on assault?
um, the first time that was just basically like, okay, haha. But then come November, the start of that, the major incident was it was actually my platoon sergeant, the one that when we get there tells us we're not allowed to work in the office, we're not allowed to do this, we're not allowed to do that. Um, I'm waiting there in the office for a phone call for my flight plan, my flight itinerary to go to Arizona for Thanksgiving. And he asked me why I'm there, why I'm not eating lunch. Told him I'm waiting for a phone call for my flight plan. So he says, okay. He reaches forward and I jump back. I'm like, what's up? He's like, you have something in your hair, which I was just underneath a bridge layer prior to that, emptying the water out from under it, and we're getting ready to change a bunch of things out under the bridge layer. So, next thing you know, when he tries to get whatever it is out of my hair, he reaches down, jerks me up by my collar, and has me thrown across the desk, pinned me down. By this time, it's fight or flight, and I'm fighting with everything I've got. I get from the desk to the wall. He has me choked, and I can barely see out the window. There's nobody out there, and he's basically strangling me, trying to put his hands all over me. The only thing to save me was a phone call.
Wow. Was that the phone call about your itinerary? And I know that this
Yes,
is hard. So this was 0 to 100. Just
real fast. It happened
did
that
you
fast.
report it? I know that as as I look at these things up front, rape or sexual assault like this is like a Class B felony. That's the
Yes.
same. That would be on the same level as first degree manslaughter, not murder, but manslaughter.
Yeah.
So I've always questioned the competency of a young captain in the Army and a first sergeant trying to figure out an investigation like this. So I get it, or at least I never experienced, but I would understand the fear that a woman like yourself would have. But did you initially report it?
So once the phone rang, he ran out the door. And I stayed on the phone as long as I could until everybody started coming back from lunch. And when everybody came back from lunch, he told another NCO that I was to stay there after lunch and work in the office. And one of the guys said, "Hey, Brown, you're staying back and working in the office this afternoon." And I said, "No, I'm not." And he was like, "No, he needs you to work in the office this afternoon." I said, "It's not what I signed up for, and I'm not staying in the office." And he said, "No, you're staying in the office. I'm working." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not staying in the office. And I will leave right now. I don't give a damn what you say. I'm not staying in the office. Don't care. I don't care what you have to do to me. I'm not staying in the office." And he told
Right.
me to go outside and we talk about it. And so we went outside. And at this point, I'm pretty nervous. I'm shaking like crazy. And we go outside and I'm sitting there. He's like, "What is wrong with you? You've never acted this way." And I started going into detail what had just happened. And he told me to stop right then. He asked me where my locker was, and he ran inside and got my BDU top because I was in my coveralls and got my boots. And my platoon sergeant asked him what's wrong. And I could hear him through the window. He said, "You done messed up again." My my company they were originally in Germany, and I found out later on that I was the seventh person that he put his hands on. So that NCO had taken me straight to our company EO, and I was basically hidden like in a closet looking around. I can even tell you to this day where it was. And I started writing everything down that happened. And later on, even looking at it, it didn't even look really legible because I was so nervous.
I can't imagine.
The the company EO couldn't even he didn't know even what to do. Our company commander was on leave, so we had an acting commander at the time. They basically hid me, told me to go home for a little bit. But in the process of doing so, prior to that, I had called someone, which they didn't know I knew. So I called this other NCO, and he comes in on two wheels in our back parking lot, and he jumps out. And there's another NCO. He comes running up the stairs, and he grabs me and he hugs me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And everybody starts yelling at me, "Who is this man?" And I started to say something, and he said, "I'm her cousin." I was stationed with my big cousin, which actually drove for the post commander.
So
So at
that was
that point, they
probably
were,
a very good thing, but not every female in that unit was in that same situation.
But that didn't even change anything. Although the rest of the time I was there, I was kind of watched, but not watched within the company. So I was watched outside the company because there was incidents. I could be in the gym and a man jerked me around in the gym and 5 guys jumped him. But so that day went on. The next morning I had to meet up with a CW4 from our another company, part of our battalion, to start the investigation. And for 5.5 months, nobody spoke to me because it's.
Let me ask you about the guy shoving you in the gym. Do you think this was somebody who knew what happened and thought that you were
This,
making this up or getting
nope.
them in trouble, or you just don't know?
Oh no, no. He was just a very abusive person that I had ended up dating later on.
Okay. So I can't imagine what that feels like being completely ostracized like that. Honestly, for doing the right thing. And when I tell, even now, I have females that gravitate towards our mission. And whenever something happens to them, my only advice is that I can give them is, if you don't stop this now, then it's going to keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
We have a chance to do what's right. Or just like the reason why I try to do these interviews, we have a chance to save lives right now, and that's through understanding it and really capturing your story. So was there anybody that you had when you were ostracized that would talk to you, or was it just like a complete blackout?
People were afraid to talk because my platoon sergeant had been with the company for so long. They actually, when the investigation came down to it, he was supposed to leave in June to go back to Germany, PCSing back to Germany. And he ended up leaving in April. They got him off the post in April because later on that June, I was injured pretty badly. And later on that year, I ended up in the orderly room because the next group of NCOs, I was moved out of that platoon into another platoon, into another platoon, into another platoon. And so NCOs that I had met at that point were constantly, it was like basic training, but worse, every day, all day.
Why do you felt they were acting like that?
They thought they could, I guess. I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Do you think on some level they didn't believe you, or this was their buddy
Potentially,
that they
but
were trying to protect?
potentially, I don't know if some of them even knew him, but the majority of the people didn't even like him, but some of the guys didn't. They didn't know him.
That's terrible. Um, so you said earlier that you knew that this guy, or it came to your attention that your platoon sergeant had done this 7 times before. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
So instead of dealing with him at the battalion level, which probably where it should have been dealt with, they just moved him around to keep the lightning bolt from hitting him.
No,
Am
they
I
moved
right in
me
saying that?
around. They
They
moved
moved
me
you
around.
around.
Yeah.
But what about his prior offenses or his prior history with this?
So some of the other women in our company that worked like office level, like supply and things like that, they knew the other women, and those other women wrote letters in my defense to make the investigation move forward. Those letters meant nothing. And so my company commander came up to me one night while we were working in the field one night and said, I'm sorry, we didn't find anything at all that he was at fault of anything. And at that point, I was just I don't know, I was pretty rude. I said, imagine that. I said, you're a weak commander.
I'd say that was fair. Was this entire investigation? You said you talked to a CW4, but
hmm
was this entire investigation kind of held down at the company level?
I didn't find out until probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years after the fact that it never even left the company level. It never left our doors. That never left that
Yes.
commander's office.
You know,
And
haven't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
my first sergeant, after I got hurt and they finally got tired of me being treated like I was in basic training, um, my next commander moved me to the orderly room. My first sergeant actually admitted that someone had broke into his office and took that platoon sergeant's file, showed me all of the scrapes on the door where someone had broke in, and I told him he's just as much at fault as the main guy.
I would say he's
And
more
he
at
looked at
fault
me, and
because not
he
only
looked at me,
did he
he's like,
deal with your case,
"Well, yeah,
he probably dealt with others. At what point
yes, I'm sure he
was it?
did." Because he was also, I found out later on that he was relieved of his duties from in Alaska for whatever reason.
Hmm. And what about the company commander, the one that actually told you that your accusation was not substantiated?
Um, I don't know. I don't know whatever happened to him.
Do you think or do you feel like this was common or this was an exception to the rule when females? I, I I can't imagine the bravery that it took for you to do that because I know when I was in at that level, that platoon sergeant's like a walking god. He could do or not do pretty much whatever he wants to do. So
hmm
to come up and say, hey, this is what just happened. This is my statement. I'm writing it down. Help me. And then, I mean, to me, that's real bravery. Um, how many other incidents like this do you think or do you know happened in that same company in the time that you were there?
I'm not really sure
Hmm.
because if anything, they were not going to tell me.
Sure. That would have been
Because if
fuel for your
anything,
fire.
right, if anything, I was going to take it as high as I could. At that point, I already knew IG. I already knew, I mean, I already knew Post Commander. I already knew everybody I needed to know. And they knew that at that point.
So this is for people who aren't in the military. When something like this happens, we like to do an after action review, like look back and talk about what happened. What would be a couple of your points in an after action review of the whole process? Like this should have happened or this should not have happened, aside from the obvious. I'll give you an
I
example what I'm
mean,
thinking. You should have been left in the same company. you probably, I don't know how dense the soldier population is at Fort Irwin, but I might think, like, let's put this female in a different battalion or maybe even brigade.
Right. I probably should have been moved out of that battalion altogether because the next company in that battalion, we done the same thing and we all worked side by side. Everybody knew each other. Our barracks were side by side. Everybody hung out with each other. The
And
next
that kind
one
of
down the
talks to
road.
what I said in the beginning. Fort Irwin is a very isolated post, and there's nothing to
Exactly.
do but talk about each other.
Exactly. So, but like I said, I mean, I did the only reason I found out that it never left company level was I did run into the post EO right before I got out. And how he knew who I was, I'll never know. But I was in the gym working out. We're both in civilian clothes, but and at that point, you know, the man stared at me like, "What are you looking at? Is there a problem?" You know, once again, I was rude, and he was very apologetic, and he told me who he was, and I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "I need you to come and talk to me, tomorrow morning." The next day was like Monday morning. I was like, "What are we going to discuss?" He's like, "I want to discuss your case." I was like, "The case is almost 2 years old. Why?" I was like, "Went through hell. Didn't have any friends. I didn't have anybody." And, it was just like, no. And that's when he told me, he's like, "I want to reopen your case. Your case never left your company level." And that's when I was pretty shocked because the commander made me think that it was fully investigated. That, oh, we just didn't find anything at fault. We just didn't do, whatever. I was like, no, I'm not going through this again. This is too much. At that point, I was ready to go home.
Right. Now, from one of our conversations, I think that you had mentioned the company commander after the guy that delivered that kind of news was a different kind of commander. Am I
Yes.
recalling that correctly?
Yes, he's definitely a no nonsense kind of commander.
So he was looking after the welfare of his company and his troops, not after the welfare of his subordinate leaders like this platoon sergeant.
Exactly.
Would you say that he was the exception and not the rule? Having a commander that
Yes,
was, yeah, I would too.
absolutely.
I would always call this the calm pond command philosophy. Like, look at how successful I am because nothing bad has happened under my command. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
because I've always said that nobody wants a bad mark on their record when they're under command. Nobody
that's right.
does.
Yeah. And we really have to learn from people who are brave like you the importance of taking the hard right over the easy wrong. And really wish you would have had that guy to begin with. I do.
Yeah.
As a female veteran, and when I met you, I knew that you were a very strong lady, and I was humbled that you shared some of what happened with me. But my question's this: what percentage of females who were in would you guess had either been assaulted, raped, or the likes? What percentage of veterans do you think that this affects?
At some point or another, 100%.
That's exactly what I have written down here too. 100%. And maybe that's just because a check of that, we maybe we're drawing the type of veteran who needs a little help. That's why we're here. But I mean, I've been blown away. I mean, literally sickened by the stories that I've heard, like field grade officers tell about E6 and E7s in their unit. And like, how does this happen? How does this keep happening? And one, what can we do? Do you think that there's anything that the military can do to stop this from happening? And I know that we've both been separated from the service for years, but I'm going to make you queen for a day, Janice. What would you change about the Army to protect your sisters and brothers? Actually, now this is happening, not quantifiably more, but at a higher rate to men than it is to women. And that's because, according to the data, men are too proud to report their attacker. So, as the queen for the day, what would you do, or is there a solution?
Right now, I mean, until people start learning to speak up, I mean, I don't know if there is a solution because, you go through your background checks, you go through everything. You're mentally stable when you go in, but are you mentally stable halfway through your journey in the military? Probably not. I mean,
Right.
what do you see? What do you deal with? I mean, I'm going in the desert. I'm away from everybody. When I get home, I don't even realize I'm that bad. My family didn't understand how bad I was. I really didn't understand how bad I was until just a few years ago. I mean, really, nobody knew how to help me. I had to help myself. So until people actually start sticking up for themselves and not be afraid of repercussions, then it's going to continue. It'll never change.
Would you say that this still affects you now?
Um, as of recently, absolutely, absolutely.
And I'm sharing that because I do feel like I'm a trusted agent to you. And what was the trigger in that set you off?
Um, I'm in the health field now and being a physical therapy assistant. So I go from working on tanks to working on people. I aggravate people all the time and, tell people I'm here to hurt them, but I'm the least of anybody's worry because the patient is always in control. And I've been doing physical therapy for 22 years almost. And I was recently put in a clinic. Now I'm placed in places to help build a program, to help build, patient rapport with people. And because I know how to do that and I know how to communicate very well with people. So I think they put me in a place to kind of help build the census up, but also find out what the problem is. And I found out what the problem was right away. Um, Working with a PT that literally makes people scream, begging him to stop with the stretches, and to the point where they're crying and screaming, and you can hear them all over the clinic. When you go home with that every night, number one, the first time they start saying no, please stop, that's when you stop. In any language, in any field, not one point does no ever mean yes. And he never let the patients be in control. And for the last few months, I had to deal with that, and it just kind of got worse. And I was bringing it home every single day.
Right.
And when it started affecting my sleep and everything else, and I'm at the point now where I can't just go out for a run and go release the endorphins that I need to release. And so, you know, holding it all in, what do? You start having nightmares. You start, just backslide big time. And at that point, also, that's when you realize just how bad you were at some point or another.
Yeah, it seems like it can pull a little scab, that underneath that little scab is still a very serious injury. I hope and pray. I don't think we'll ever be able to put it down. You'll be able to put it down. But one of the things that we are doing to bring awareness is we are creating an HR training module that throughout a civilian workplace, as we talk about suicide prevention and improving the well-being of employees, it's drawing this kind of sensitivity to the workplace, and specifically as it could relate to a veteran suicide. So, Janice, I'm so humbled that you did this. I thank you, and you're an amazing person, and I'm happy to have you in my life.
Thank you for asking me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it again.
Let's do it again. More of the same. All right. Yeah. So for all of the viewers, that's a pretty amazing story. And at the end of the day, I think my takeaways are, and it's nothing new, but no always means no. And when somebody comes forward and is brave enough to jeopardize their reputation, their day-to-day happiness, to do the right thing, let's frickin' pay attention, because something seriously has happened. So one last time, thank you so much. And if you have anything left to add, please do so. I really appreciate you.
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.